So I don't know if y'all have been paying that much attention on the internet, or at least were paying attention last week, but there was this very interesting question that was dividing a ton of opinion. And it was a simple question that was asking, which would you rather, $500,000 or a lunch with Jay-Z? And it split quite a bit of opinion. And I think I might have found one that's a little bit more decisive than that. And it goes like this. A man once stole his girlfriend's $10,000 to play a bet and won $100 million. So he gives her her $10K back, and she's furious and she wants $40 million out of that 100. So the question is she justified to ask for that much? How about you debate that, then we can come back and I can give you a proper answer for it.
Get ready for the battle of the sexes.
Now, this was something that didn't divide as many people on the internet, probably because it didn't reach as many people. But honestly, I feel like it's a little easier to see where the divide comes in, because this is where a lot of the whole, battle of the sexes can come in. Because you'll find most of the babes will be like, because it was her money and he took it and he used it to make some more money. Then the money is technically even hers. She should even be getting more because she was the one that gave up the initial money, blah, blah, blah. And definitely there's going to be a bunch of guys that are going to be on that side as well. Because like, he used her money, so she should get a pretty huge cut as well. But then now there's the rest of us niggas who are like, why the hell is he doing that? Why the hell should he do that? Like, he didn't use her to bet. He just took the money. And anyways, he pretty much returned the money. So it's technically not even a case of it being stolen. So it does bring up the question of who's a little bit more right than the other. And to be quite honest, for me, when I looked at this question, I thought about it in sort of like an investment sense. If I took a loan from the bank to take an investment somewhere and, it matured and it made a fuck ton of money, it's not like I'd have to give the bank a certain share of that investment. All I'd have to do is return whatever it is that's owed. And essentially, that's how I'd look at it. Assuming, say, 0% interest and so on. Because at that point, it's not the bank's business what it is that I do with the money. It's actually just the fact that I've borrowed some money and I'm supposed to return it. So whether it is I borrowed 1 mil and made 50 out of it, or, borrowed the 1 mil and ended up with $500,000, the bank will still expect its money back. It's not dependent on what it is that I do with the money and whether I make a profit with it or not. So honestly speaking, if he's to give her any money, he better be left with 99,990,000, assuming that he got exactly 100 million. All right. And to kind of explain this in a slightly simpler way without too much, mathematics or finance or anything, I'll use the explanation that my brother gave when I presented this question to him a little bit earlier. Now, he was for the guy keeping all the money and only giving her back the 10K. And his explanation was, if he'd have gone in and he'd have bet all the money and lost it all, would she have asked for 4K or for 6K? Not exactly. She'd want her full 10K back. So why the hell is it that now he has to pay 40 million because he managed to gain from it? Like, it doesn't make sense at all. But anyways, that being said, I will leave that to you to kind of discuss and figure out. In the meantime, we do have a podcast to begin, and unfortunately, if you're not up for divisive opinions, then I don't know if you came to the right place, but we might as well start so you can find out. So, in typical fashion, welcome to Breaktime on Westside, your number one breaktime podcast, coming to you from Nairobi, Kenya. The man on the mic is a man who still wonders why oral sex does not give you an additional body count. He's a man who likes his women the same exact way he likes his yogurt. It is none other than your tall, dark, and mildly handsome man, Sir Denver B. The show is Battle of the Sexes, our weekly love, sex, and relationships show, where I get to say a bunch of different things. They tend to have divisive opinions. People usually tend to argue over something, but at some point, I might just come through with a conclusion. Now, as usual, I usually leave my conclusions open and I leave you with the opportunity to make a decision for yourself and, give your thoughts, comments, and feedback. On Instagram, it is at Breaktime on Westside. On Facebook, it is also at Breaktime on Westside. You can slide into the DMs there. DMs are always open. And on Twitter, you can slide into my personal DMs, which is at Bagaka the D. And we can continue the discussion and we can begin others, some of which I wouldn't mind bringing to the podcast for us to discuss. Now, that said, we should probably move it on to our main topic of today, but we know that we're not going there just yet, because that's something that I want us to talk about for a little bit. And hell, at this point, I think it's something that I would genuinely want to rant about. Now, not too long ago, while I was scrolling through the IG, especially around during the break, there was this very interesting quote that I saw that had been quoted and brought to IG, and it was on someone's story. I found it to be particularly interesting but fairly annoying at the same time. Now, it was a woman who had come out to say, and I quote, "Imagine if men had to pay a deposit before dating you, and if they wasted your time, you kept it. Half the male species would be bankrupt." End quote. And, the fuck? Like, seriously, the fuck? Like, yo, I can get it. There's definitely a bunch of babes on the side who are like, yeah, it's true. Like, this is real facts. These guys would be bankrupt and shit. But honestly, I feel like you need to have lost a couple of your marbles. You need to have had your IQ depleted to like a double-digit level for you to actually kind of formulate such an opinion. Because, I don't know, like maybe I'm the one who's wrong, but we've been doing this shit for over 200 years. Like, I'm just saying. Because, well, dates started in what, 1800? And if you count 220 years, that's roughly about how long we've been doing this. But can I say that half the male species has been driven bankrupt? No. I'd argue that we're still pretty much the same. I'd say quite a number of guys have gone out on dates, and yes, there are a couple of them where women have paid. But for the most part, if you actually do think about it, guys have been doing this the entire time. Like, I'm not even going to take it that far and say, oh, expensive dinner and shit. Guys have been doing this shit for a very long time. Like, we've been putting money down and we've been hoping to get the babe at the end of the day. Whether it's to bang them that same night, whether it's to bang them sooner or later, whether it's to be in a relationship with them, be it short term, be it long term, be it casual. We've been taking women out on dates for eons. And very recently is when now people started changing up the whole thing and making it a case of going Dutch or, having the woman pay for everything. Of which there's still quite a number of places that don't do that. They don't believe in that shit. Now, to say that us guys spending money on dates and us, taking time to engage with you, get some conversation, try some new shit, and pretty much just spend time with you doesn't amount to that version of a deposit is pretty much spitting in the face of, the fact that guys have been doing this in dates for a very long time. And yes, I get it. Babes can come out and they'll be like, oh, nah, but we sometimes even end up spending more because we have to go and get our hair done and, we get our nails done. And it's not like dresses don't cost money, so we sometimes even have to buy an entirely new dress for that entire thing. Like, yes, you could make that argument, but at the same time, it's not like guys don't do nothing. Like, we'll scout out the place most times. We will pretty much budget for it and put the money down. And we will also invest in actually going for that date. It's just that how we invest is a lot different. Now, guys can invest in terms of trying to, make up jokes, trying to find out more about the babe, trying to know what good talking points to use and shit. Yes, we can go for a haircut, even though that's not really how most guys would do it. Can we get a new suit? Probably, but rarely ever. And at the end of the day, like, y'all buying a new dress is your problem. You can repeat the dress that you wore from, 6 months ago, but you're the one that decided to spend 5k on a new dress. Now, if I go and I buy a suit for 15k, and instead of using it once like you're going to do, I use it 100 times in its lifespan, then I'll have gotten the full value of my money with that purchase. Now, for you, you're buying 5k to blow it all in, say, that 1, 2, 3 periods. So that's your L there. And here's the thing. a lot of the babes might look at it as just cheap food and conversation, which can sometimes be basic. And, y'all can write it off as, just some basic shit, it's bare minimum. But when you think about it from a guy's point of view, we treat it like an investment. And that's primarily why you'll find that guys might want to sleep with you at the end of the first date, even though you refuse. It's part of the reason why you'll find guys getting all vexed when you choose not to call them back, or you choose to leave them on blue ticks, or you choose to give them shit, because they were expecting to get something good out of it. And normally, if it's dating to, say, get into a relationship, it's the emotional security that comes with the relationship. It's, the possible sex that can come from it, if they value that quite a bit. Like, their return on investment is a good relationship, or at least a good bond that can turn into a relationship with a little bit of intimacy here and there. Just saying. If it's a bang, then, well, we already know where that's going. So when a guy goes in and puts his investment on that, and you take it as nothing, and you think that it's bare minimum, then shorty, you barely know jack shit about dating. You don't understand dating. You just go for dates and expect that you'll be the prize that everyone will want to be with. Yet a good chunk of you are very shitty when it comes to conversation. Just saying. But anyways, that being said, however it is you want to look at it, we usually put the deposit down, and it's called the date. So take it where it's at. If you feel like that's bare minimum, I don't know, go suck on Big Daddy for all I care. But anyways, that said, we should move it on to our main topic of today. And I have to admit, this one was a bit of a build up on its own. Like, it wasn't particularly driven by one thing that I noticed, or something that I read online in and of itself. Like, it was a bunch of things that came together. And it was this thing that I saw quite a number of guys do over time, where I see a guy that's really, really into a babe. He really has the feels for her. Hell, mans could probably be fully in love. And there was this statement that they'd always say, I think she's the one for me. Or they'd be at a wedding and, people would be like, how did you know that she was the one? And, guys were like, oh, there was this and this that we did. There was that and that she did. And then I realized that she was the one. And hell, like, this happens to babes as well. And I usually hear people talk about the idea of the one quite a bit. And especially for us young people who are dating right now, it's, I'll be honest, it sounds fairly common nowadays to hear people saying, oh, I don't know, I think she might be the one. And, stuff can go sideways, and all of a sudden, people are breaking down over character development. So I kind of decided, let me look into it. Because personally, I stopped believing in the idea of the one, because at some level, at some point in time in my life, much as I believed in it, I kind of realized that it was a bit of a fallacy in and of itself. Because a lot of the times when I'd see somebody talking about the idea of the one and the fact that they found the one, or they wish they'd find the one, I'd sort of find myself observing how they'd take the whole thing. And if it's a relationship, if it's a situationship, if it's a full-on marriage. And over time you'd find that sometimes these people would break up. Sometimes they divorce. Sometimes they'd separate. And sometimes the other person would pass on. And you'd find that these people would still have to move on. And I'm not trying to play all Path of Neo or anything, but if you're the one, aren't you supposed to be one singular person? Like, I don't know, Matrix 4 is coming up, so maybe that might be debated, but am I the only one that thinks that being the one is a singular thing? Because here's my issue with it. If, hypothetically speaking, you tell me that you found the one, and say, you guys go the long haul, and it's not like you guys break up or separate or anything, like you guys go the long haul, you have an amazing relationship, and unfortunately by some circumstance she passes on, does that mean that you don't get to move on with your life? Does that mean that you stop dating? Does that mean that you stop having romantic relationships and you pretty much stay alone for the rest of your life? Like, if she was the one, then that would mean that would be the case, which I don't think is actually the case. You can still manage to move on even after she's passed away or he's passed away. And that kind of discredits it all entirely. Then you look at things like divorces, which, yes, it is debatable because it's not like people usually divorce due to a lack of love, but at the end of the day, if she was the one for you as a wife and y'all ended up breaking up, does that mean that you can't have another wife? Does that mean that you can't have another husband? That's the question that I usually ask myself. And I'm even going to leave the people that usually talk about having the one and then character development happens, or some shit goes south and the relationship doesn't go on, because they're even worse. They usually end up having so many ones at this point. It's like they're about to go to a strip club and throw money and shit. Although in the case of making this argument, they do factor in quite well as well. So personally, I don't believe in the idea of the one, because if that was the case, then all of these situations that I've just mentioned behind me would have been, sort of non-existent. And frankly, it is part of the reason why you find that the red pill community of the manosphere, and for those of y'all that don't know about it, you can go and listen to the Fan of a Fan episode I did with Mr. Man Style. And we actually did kind of go into the whole red pill community and everything, and the manosphere. Anyways, as I was saying, now the red pill community actually do recognize this as an issue, and they address it under something that they call one-itis. It's pretty much the idea of the one, and this whole feeling of, I feel like she's the one, I think she's the one. And they usually debunk it, and they usually shun it. It's something that they absolutely loathe. And much as I'm not necessarily a part of the red pill community or the manosphere by quite a lot of accounts, it's something that I do also believe in, because I honestly feel as though the idea of the one came from the thought that you can have somebody that is going to be fully compatible with you. It's the dream, it's the ideal that came through with the thought that, I want somebody who can complete me. I want the Eve to my Adam. I want to make sure that I have the woman of my dreams that I can live happily ever after with, or I can have the man of my dreams that I can live happily ever after with. And at the end of the day, it seems like a very good thing, and it's a very nice ideal to have, but at the very same time, it's a very restrictive and destructive kind of ideal to have, because if you end up being with someone that you'd call the one, and you choose to stick with them because they're the one, and yet they're a toxic partner and they're abusive, then you end up getting hurt because you've been following that ideal. If you end up sticking to one person and yet they're not the best for you, say from the fact that you guys are incompatible with things that you like together, incompatible in your interests in the bedroom and shit, and they're just fully incompatible, then you end up suffering because you end up wasting so much time trying to pursue a relationship so hard, yet it's not really beneficial to the both of you. So in a sense, it is very destructive as an ideal. But does that mean that we should abandon it? Not exactly. Because at the end of the day, this is a dream. This is an ideal that people have. And I wouldn't want to tell them to forget the ideal. I'd want them to change the ideal. Because instead of getting one that's highly destructive and highly restrictive, such as the one, how about if you get one that's a little bit more realistic, that makes a little bit more sense, that can actually help you a hell of a lot more? And it doesn't even have to lose the term one there. All I have to do is paraphrase, and instead of saying that I want the one or I have the one, I will say I am looking for 1 in a million. Seems a hell of a lot easier, right? And in a sense, it still does have the same feeling as you having the one, but instead of you choosing them as the sole person, making it so restrictive that in light of whatever issues you'll have, this was supposed to be the one person that you'd be with, it opens you up to the possibility that there could be others. Because if, say, hypothetically speaking, we're a little over 8 billion people, because of corona deaths and everything, even though you said that you have 1 in a million, it means that there's at least 8,000 others that you can go for. And if you think about it that way, it makes it a lot easier to look at somebody and not see them as irreplaceable. And I'm not saying that everyone should be looked at as, replaceable things, that dispensable, as long as they don't help me, blah, blah, blah. No, value people. People are of important value, and no one person is the same as another person. But you cannot restrict yourself to one person when we have a world full of billions of people. And yes, I know there's the whole fish in the sea thing. You know, you can't say that you can find 8,000 people that are exactly like her, or, you know, you'll find 8,000 people that carry her characteristics. Of course not. I don't think I can do that. You know, I don't think anyone really can, because everyone is different. But at the end of the day, it does open you up in terms of options, because it's a constant reminder to your subconscious and your conscious that even though this person was to leave, even though things were to end, I'd find somebody. But guess what? They're extremely valuable. Because guess what? If you say that, in and of itself, it's actually less than the population of geniuses that are on this planet. Just saying. Just figured I should tell you that. So, in a sense, it does make her or him seem extremely valuable. Of course, you could say that, you know, she's 1 in a billion. And frankly, you know, you could be right. You could be right. And there's probably only, say, 8 point something versions of her that I can find. But I'd prefer sticking to 1 in a million, because it opens you up a hell of a lot more. You know, it shows you that I might lose this one, but there's so much more. There's so many others that I can find that can fulfill me, that can complete me in the same way that this other person would have. And I feel like that's a lot better than the idea of telling somebody, oh, you know, she just wasn't the one for you. Nah, like, just tell somebody, you know what, on to the next one. She was 1 in a million, there's definitely 8,000 others that you can go for. And guess what? The good thing with 8,000 others is you can't exactly finish them. You cannot. Does that mean that you should stop valuing the person that you're with? No, value them. But the mere fact that they're 1 in a million means that they're very valuable in and of themselves. Like, that valuation of being 1 in a million still means that you have options, but at the same time, it means that she is special. It means that he or she is valuable in that they are part of 0.000125% of the global population, which in and of itself means that they are very, very, very special. So either way, however it is you want to look at it, I feel like the idea of the one is a much bigger lie, and saying that you're looking for the one is in and of itself a myth that can get you hurt quite a lot. But if you say that you are looking for a woman, if you're looking for a man or a trans, if you're into that kind of thing, that is 1 in a million, then guess what? You will have narrowed it down such that you're looking for someone special, but you'll have widened it such that even though it doesn't work out with this one, there's another one that you can go for. And just like DJ Khaled, you will move on to
another one.
But then again, I could be wrong about this entire thing, so I want your thoughts on this. Do you believe in the one? Do you not believe in the one? Do you think the idea of 1 in a million is a lot better? Or are you the kind of person that's all for 1 in a billion? The DMs are open. On Instagram, it is at Breaktime on Westside. On Facebook, it is also at Breaktime on Westside. And on Twitter, you can slide into my personal DMs, which is at Bagaka the D. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end. And if you are listening on Castbox, feel free to drop your thoughts and comments below, and I will attend to them accordingly. And I will catch you guys on the next break.